Welcome to the Raw Path to Awakening podcast with Ezequiel and Domanique, where we share alternative information, unique, unfiltered perspectives on spiritual subject matter, and deconstruct decolonization as we cultivate higher awareness in our daily lives. In this episode, we will be exploring the lore of ancient stories of North American peoples, paranormal experiences, and how to deal with shadow beings and demons.
Thank you for that beautiful intro, Dominique.
Aho. I'd like to just take a few deep breaths with our listeners and give gratitude to the ancestors, since we're going to be talking about the ancestors a lot in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're listening and you're driving or you're operating equipment of any kind, please don't close your eyes. This is just to take a few deep breaths. If you are in a space where you're able to close your eyes, I do invite you to do that. And just take a deep breath in with your nose, breathing into your heart, and exhaling out your mouth. Breathing in through your belly, into your lungs. Try to take the deepest breath you've taken all day. And exhale out your mouth. Relax your shoulders, relax that space in between your eyes. Taking another deep breath in. And this time I invite you to just hold it for a few seconds, relaxing that space behind your eyelids, and exhale out your mouth. I want to give gratitude to the caretakers and the ancestors of the grounds that we're on right now, which is Shumash land, and to all of the descendants that are still here and that are spread around, and giving gratitude to whatever ancestors that took the land that you're on. Give gratitude to them, and giving gratitude to our ancestors, the 7 generations behind us. No matter what heritage you come from, giving gratitude to the 7 generations that came before you, and giving blessings and prayers to the 7 generations in front of you that have yet to come.
Oh,
Matakio Yasin.
So, what, just to start us off, so, we're going to talk about Native stories. And so which ones are the ones that you are familiar with, or that that you've been taught?
I've been taught a few. There's a lot of different ones that I know, but one that I want to share today is the story of White Buffalo Calf Woman.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gained popularity lately. A lot of people may know or have heard about her, and it's a Lakota story. And it comes from, the story goes from White Buffalo Calf Woman. Long ago, the tribe, the Lakota, sent 2 hunters to go look for buffalo. And these 2 hunters, they were looking in the plains and they were far away. And in the distance, they saw like a white buffalo calf. And as they got closer, she ended up being a woman coming towards them. And as she came into focus, she was the most beautiful woman they had ever seen. And it was like she was godly. She was glowing, full in white buckskin. And as they approached her, the one hunter was like, "Oh man, she's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I want her to be my wife." And the other hunter was like, "How dare you?" And she said, "You shall not idolize me as a sexual being." And he went to touch her, and a cyclone came around both of them. And then when she came back out of the cyclone and the wind, he was a pile of bones at her feet. So she was like, "You shall not sexualize me." And she said, "Take me to your people. I came to speak to your leader, which is bull walking upright. And she said, go on ahead of me and tell your people that I'm on my way. Ask them to move camp and to pitch their tents in a circle. Ask them to leave an opening in the circle facing north. And in the center of the circle, make a large teepee facing the north. And there I will meet Bull walking upright and his people. So the man scurried away and he went to his people and he was like, okay, we have to prepare. There's this, goddess coming. And when she reached the camp, she had a bundle of sagebrush. And in that bundle of sagebrush was a pipe. It's the first chanupa. And it was made of red pipestone. It's called pipestone now because it's like a soft stone, red stone. And on it was carved a tiny outline of a buffalo calf. And so they gave this pipe to Bull walking upright, and she taught him the prayers that would be prayed with this pipe to the strong one above, or Wankatanka, Tankashila. So she said, when you pray to the strong one above, you must use this pipe in a ceremony. When you're hungry, unwrap the pipe and let it bear in the air. And then the buffalo will come to your people and your children will have food to eat. She taught them the prayers that they would say, praying to Mother Earth, praying with gratitude. And she told them that they should decorate themselves for ceremonies. So for these special ceremonies, they're supposed to decorate themselves as the mother does in black and red and brown and white. And that's now become yellow and white over the years as the colors of the medicine wheel. And so they're to smoke it to the 4 directions. And this is the story of the first chanupa and it's very widespread that this is a coming of the 4 directions to Turtle Island. So then what happened once she was about to leave, she gave him the pipe.
Wait, so you mean the 4 colors represents the 4
Directions,
not the 4 main races, right?
I see it as it's both.
Okay.
I see it as both the 4 directions, the 4 elements, the 4 races of humankind. And it's a foreshadowing. So what ended up happening is as she was leaving, she rolled into the ground and became a red buffalo. And then she rolled over again and she became a brown buffalo or a yellow buffalo. And then she rolled over again and she became a black buffalo. And then she rolled over again and she became a white buffalo and she took off running. And that's why they call her White Buffalo Calf Woman. And I think it's a foreshadowing of the 4 different races coming to Turtle Island. And that pipe is to be used when there's conflict, when there's agreements. It's said to bring everybody together and for the betterment of humankind. Of the Lakota people in particular. And that actual pipe is still carried by Arvo Looking Horse, who I believe was at Standing Rock.
Yeah, I believe that I don't remember if I saw him at Standing Rock because I was at Standing Rock. I did have a lot of experiences there. Like a lot of first of all, Standing Rock changed my life. Standing Rock was played a very significant role in like the activism that I do today. That was my first big kind of activist type.
When did you go out there?
I went in right after Christmas in 2016. And I spent the New Year's out there.
So that must have been cold.
It was really cold. It was death cold.
How long were you there for?
I was there for a month.
And like, were you like camped out?
I was in a
In a tent?
I was in a military tent.
Okay, so it's like canvas.
It was but you still had to. We had a like little fire, like a little stove that we had to light to stay warm, and we had like 2 or 3 layered sub-zero sleeping bags to stay warm.
Damn. And who else was with you in the tent?
Um,
Was it big? It's like a bunch of people in there?
it was a big tent. There was a lot of people there. A lot of people had left. And when the winter came, only a few people, only the true warriors stayed behind.
Damn, it's a true test. I wanted to go. I remember when it was happening, and I was in college, and I had a kid, and I was just like, it's not in the cards for me. But I'm glad that you were there, and so many people. What did you guys do when you were out there? Like, what kind of ceremonies did you guys do?
We prayed. We had a yurt, and we prayed every day. And this one woman showed me how to put tobacco into cloths and different colored cloths and string them up,
Prayer ties.
prayer ties.
Yeah.
And we offered tobacco to the fire. We learned how to keep. We had this fire that we kept going for the whole time.
The sacred fire.
The sacred fire.
Yeah.
And some of the women would go down to the water and pray, do the water ceremony. Like it was like every single day. And then
In the morning time.
In the morning time, yeah. And we would also, we would go up to where all the barbed wire it was, and all the police were, and we would pray to them and sing songs to them,
So that. What camp were you at? This was on the front line.
This is on the front lines. Osheti Sekoan.
Can you say it slower?
Osheti Sekoan. I can't even. I'm probably butchering it. I'm probably butchering.
You're saying it with your Mexican accent or your Spanish accent, I should say. So, and do you know what that means? Do you remember?
It's like the seventh generation. It's like it basically means like when all these tribes come together. I don't know the exact translation, but it's supposed to mean like the community of all these tribes coming together in one spot.
And so give us like a little like set the scene. Like how much snow was there? Where was the barbed wire in relation to where you were sleeping?
So
the water.
It starts off with me and my friend Omar. We're like, hey, let's go. Like this is fucked up. Like we gotta do something.
Yeah.
And so we're all getting ready. We're getting our tents ready, and we're, getting like all our stuff ready to go. And he basically, like, his girlfriend at the time was like, oh, like, I don't think you should go. It's dangerous. It's like super cold. Like, and so he didn't end up going because his girlfriend was like,
well, she was right. Was dangerous, but warriors, today's a good day to die.
So I was like, I'm still going. Like, I have to go. I'm being called there because 2 weeks prior, I wasn't sleeping correctly because I felt this pull in my body, like this energetic pull to go. And I had to complete that wish internally, So I get pack all my things. I get snow, like boots. I get a whole, like, what my friend calls a bear suit. It's
yeah, like, pretty much, right?
It's like a big
like a sleeping bag you wear?
No. It's like it's like a onesie, but it's like it's meant for the cold.
Okay.
And it's like
like an undersuit, like an under furry suit.
It's made out of cotton, and like it also has like these pads underneath, and it's big and
you got your bear suit on.
Got my bear suit. I got my bear suit on.
Or in your luggage, I guess.
So I got all my
How'd
things.
you get there?
Yeah, there's this Armenian guy who I met through Facebook because I was trying to figure out how to get a ride over there, and he's my friend Omar ended up taking me to Anaheim, and that's where the guy from Armenia was, and he drove us all the way to Standing Rock.
And that was in North Dakota.
North Dakota, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for those of you listening that, we're talking about Standing Rock, they're like, what is Standing Rock?
Standing Rock was a movement, and it's still going on right now. to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Right. It has the potential, and it has actually, since it's been constructed, infiltrated the water supply, and it's leaked
Yes, it's leaked.
oil. It's inevitable. So the Water is Life movement, the Standing Rock, a lot of people went out to Standing Rock at that time, and there were a lot of different camps. I have heard stories from other people, and I think it was really good work that everybody was doing, and it's just such a shame that, the powers that be were on the side of capitalism and building this pipeline, and they were kinda like, "We're gonna do it anyways, and there's nothing you can do about it," right? Isn't that how it ended?
It
I mean,
was
it's still going
it's
on,
still
but
it was
people aren't
fucked
camped out, are they?
I haven't checked in a while, and I haven't really, I've kept in contact with some of my friends, from Standing Rock, some of my native friends, and, um, their
People had to go home eventually.
people had to go home,
You
you know?
can't just
Can't just
stick it out there.
can't just stick it out there forever,
You know, that actually reminds me of the story of my people a little bit. I'm a granddaughter of genocide. That's something that I really, unfortunately, am a product of. I didn't really know my grandma. And a lot of Native people have this issue, especially ones that had the Indian Removal Act and were descendants of Indians that were uh, put into modern culture in the cities and then pretty much beat the culture out of them through boarding schools and whatnot. So I didn't even know that my tribe was the Modoc until like this year. So the Klamath, the Modoc, and the Yahuskin were all grouped together on one res, which is very common. A lot of tribal reservations were just like, oh, we're just going to group these people together. We're going to group these people together. So I only found out that I'm actually Modoc. I'm not Klamath, but I'm registered through the Klamath tribe.
Mhm.
So the Modoc War actually was in Northern California in the Lava Beds Monument, and they were like the warriors, the last one standing, and they did a thing where they were like, "We're not going to go up to Klamath. That's not our territory. We don't like these people. Like, we'll
Mhm.
trade with them, but we don't really like them." And so my ancestors, they stuck it out in the lava beds, and it's pretty famous for the women and children were all together, and then the warriors were protecting them on the outside, and they used their environment for their benefit, and because they knew it very well. And I think there was only like 50 warriors, and they had a head count of over 1,000 US infantry that they killed. And
That's impressive.
very impressive. And I think it got whittled down to like 15 or 20 warriors left, and the women and children essentially were starving, and it was in the dead of winter. And it was like, well, you can only stake out for so long if you don't have food, if you don't have water. And the infantry just kept coming in. And what ended up happening is they had to surrender after they killed a general, and then the US military was just like, blah, 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 blah. So they had to surrender because they were starving, and they were like, all right. And they executed the like main chief and people, and then they appointed my great great uncle as the chief, and they sent him to Oklahoma. And then
Mhm.
the Modoc tribe has a base in Oklahoma. And then the other people, they separated them. So they're like,
Mhm.
okay, you go over here and you go over here. And it kind of just whittled down the culture.
Yeah.
So it's really sad, but it's really important, I think, for us to learn our history. At that time that Standing Rock was happening, I was doing a Native American studies class, and I learned so much that I had no idea. Like that, why don't they don't teach us this in school?
Yeah, Standing Rock for me was a big catalyst for me actually finding out my indigeneity, like, learning that, I'm not that Mexican is a nationality, not my actual ethnicity,
Yeah.
you know? Learning that, my culture that I was raised in was actually a part of assimilation.
Totally.
Because even though, yes, Mexican culture is a mix of indigenous and Spaniard, uh, uh, kind of coming together, like that culture, even though that still took away a lot of natives their roots, the root of that that culture, because like I've told you before, I've done my DNA test, and and most of my genetic makeup is indigenous, like is native, like that's the biggest portion in my genetic makeup, and you know,
Just got a little bit of Spaniard.
y- I think it said like 30
That's pretty
8
low though
38% Spaniard,
for
yeah.
most, I mean, I don't know what the most common is. I think it just depends on the family line. But your
Yeah.
family line in particular has a lot of stuff going on, especially
Yeah.
spiritually.
Yeah, my mom and my grandmother who passed away in 2017, they they were both very psychic, and my mom, she was actually afraid of her own psychic abilities. So she knows things, but she's afraid when she picks up things, she's like in a fear. She's afraid,
Right.
you
Well,
know.
the church, they did
Yeah.
that to prevent the powers of the indigenous from rising. And so they put fear and shame on any sort of rituals or ceremonies. And they were like, the missions and all the Catholic Church really colonized so much of the world and made people really afraid of their original culture.
Yeah. So I feel like there's just there's a lot of culture that has been stripped away by my people, like away from my people, and it's not just when Mexicans romanticize about the past,
Hmm.
they only really think of Aztec and Mayan, or but it's more than that. We have the Yaqui, we have the Huichol, but the Huichol actually call themselves Wixárika. We have all these different cultures, and yeah, I just feel like there's a lot of practices that have been lost, like Sundance, and that's something that you can.
Sundance is coming back. Also, like peyote meetings, peyote ceremonies. A lot of these ceremonies are really coming back, and we're rediscovering our indigeneity through these ceremonies.
Mhm.
And as a city Indian that didn't have the privilege to grow up in my culture, I'm so I've romanticized the Native American ceremonies where I didn't understand yet, sweat lodge and everything, and once I started actually going, I was just so humbled and, like, recognizing, like, I'm such a baby on the path, on the red
Mhm.
road is what we call it, and it's really gained a lot of popularity as well with a lot of new agers trying to kinda mimic it, and that's something that really rubs people the wrong way because it's like, "Yo, like, I know that you want to honor and I believe that everybody has the right to pray,
Yes.
and to pray with sweat lodges is throughout all cultures, they have their own version of the sweat lodge, but to piggyback off of native communities and native culture is appropriation.
There's a right way to approach it. There's a right
There are
way
people
to.
that do it in the right way,
Yeah, and I feel like people are just
but a lot of people do it in the wrong way.
a lot of people doing the wrong way. Yeah, a lot of people, they come in this with this colonial mindset of taking, like,
Right,
and that's a problem.
right.
Um, they just see something, they like it, and they want to take it for themselves. They
Right.
take it, you know,
Well,
and
and then they also want to sell it.
they want to sell it.
And
So
that's how we're decolonizing our minds of recognizing how how have we done that? And how can you, if you have done that, if you are a person listening and that's you're like, "Oh shit, that was me," or "That is me right now." How can you take a step back, admit your wrongs, and shift directions so that you can be walking in a good way? So that
mhm,
you can be honoring not only the people that you're learning from, but your own ancestry. Because I think as mixed bloods, it's our role to weave the baskets between the races. There's so many people that are two or more races in America. I mean, it's
that's
like
true.
more common than not in our generation to be mixed. So even if you don't have any Native American blood, there are people that are very drawn to that Native culture. So how can you respect and honor it in a good way rather than
I think even we, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't become and be respectful. We're gonna be
even
equally,
more so?
even more so. We come and we respect the ceremony. Whether it's sweat lodge, uh, there's peyote, Sundance, like
Also, you should never charge for ceremony. That's something that I was taught that is very clear is that ceremonies are not for sale, but it does take contributions and donations in order to respect the people that are creating the ceremony. Firewood is a resource that takes time and energy and money. Even if you're not buying a cord of wood, somebody's got to go out there and cut the wood. Somebody's got to go out there and make sure that it's ready for ceremony. Somebody's got to gather the cedar. Somebody's got to dry it. Somebody's got to get the medicine, you know? Somebody's got to build the lodge. Like there's so much that goes into it. So as a visitor, it is recommended that you bring a donation of some sort.
it doesn't always have to be like a monetary value. It can be.
No,
It is.
it's preferred,
It's preferred. But I'm saying you could.
but you don't have to. You can
You could
do
volunteer.
volunteer,
You can
bring firewood.
get wood, freaking bring food for the people who are working,
Totally.
you know?
Ask how you can be of service before taking. That's one of the main lessons here. And part of the Native American culture is being of service. And as Native peoples, we were not allowed to practice our own religions and ceremonies until 1978.
You know, that's why. And there's, there's a reason there's, there's ceremonies like ghost dance, like
Right. So Sundance was legal, Ghost Dance was definitely illegal, peyote meetings, powwow, all that stuff. Sweat lodge, it was all illegal until 1978. And Ghost Dance is kind of gnarly. Like that's
well, tell us about what that.
so I don't know people that still I think that some people still practice it, but it's very private. And it's essentially a round dance for 4 days and 4 nights. So a
Mhm.
round dance is where people they go in a circle and they dance in a circle and you've got a medicine person with eagle feathers coming and doing healing on people and then they go into trances and dances. And so the whole ceremony, the intention is to bring harmony and peace back to the native peoples and to remove all non-natives from native land and the ghosts of the past, the martyrs and the warriors that were killed in vain, not be in vain, and have them come back through us. I don't want to say to take revenge, but low key. And so it scared the white people, like
It
all
scared
the
the shit out of
colonizers.
them.
Yeah, they're like, you can't do this no more. Like, you can't do no ceremonies
Well,
anymore.
that's the interesting part of the it's the interesting about the colonizers is that even though they had a different religion, right? They had different beliefs. There's a reason they outlawed so many all these ceremonies and religious practices because they saw the power They saw the power in those ceremonies, and they're like, "Nope, we can't have you do that because we're gonna be effed."
And then what did they do? They created boarding schools. They were like, we have to save these poor children. And they created boarding schools and they removed children from Native homes and put them into boarding schools, cut their hair, took their clothes away, put their English breeches on. And I know my great grandma is a survivor from boarding school. And thankfully, she was in a place where there weren't giant graveyards in the back, at least not that we know of. But up in Canada, they've found thousands of mass graves of these Native children. And that has just come of the past like 2-3 years. We've discovered this.
Yeah, it's been pretty recent that we discovered massive
This is on
grave
the same
sites.
scale as the Holocaust. Like we're talking tens of thousands of children that were killed and abused and tortured in psychological and physical ways that is just so sad. And the survivors of these boarding schools also are recently coming out and sharing the horrific stories of what actually happened behind closed doors. And so that is systemic genocide, where they didn't necessarily open fire on all the kids, but you sure as hell know that they traumatized out of them.
Yeah.
And I know my great grandma, she didn't speak her language because she was afraid. She married an Italian man because it was safe, because he was going to protect her. And I know that a lot of survivors and descendants of survivors have heard some stories that are just really, if that was happening today, there would be a huge, some people say that it is happening today underground, but
How much has your grandma taught you about your culture? Has she like what is your relationship with your grandmother and like sharing that indigenous
I wish it
culture?
were better, honestly. So my grandma, I think I talked to her for the first time on the phone when I was like 8. I didn't meet her until I was like 20. 20, no, I think I met her when I was 23 or 24. So I was already an adult.
Yes.
And actually, when I was I was going to Sweat Lodge almost every week, and I was praying about her. I was praying that she would be well, and just praying for her health. And I'd never met her at this point, and then right when I had this like really strong urge to pray for her, she called me and she had a near death experience and she wanted to reconnect. And so I went up there and she was going to teach me. She taught me a little bit. I know like the basic weave of baskets. We were basket people and wetland people, and I learned a little basic about that. And she took me to a sacred spring where we prayed with the water, and I played the flute for her, and she cried, and it was really beautiful. You know, she said that she said that she had multiple men trying to make her into a medicine person, into a shaman, and that she didn't really follow through with that, but she poured Sweat Lodge for recovering addicts with NARA. It's Native American Rehabilitation Association. So my grandma was a longtime alcoholic and in and out of jail and prison. And so she had a lot of kids and she didn't raise most of them, or at least my mom. My mom was not raised by her. So I wish my relationship was better with my grandma. I feel like we did heal some stuff, but she has a lot of mental health issues that she's working through, and a lot of health issues that she's working through. And she was telling me a bunch of stories and kind of had this delusional breakdown where she thought that I was trying to move in and like steal her stuff because she had a cousin that was trying to do that years ago, and she kind of got the wrong idea, and that was the last I saw of her. She was really scary. She get a really angry Indian woman. She has a lot of bitterness, a lot of anger, a lot of wounding from generational trauma.
Wow.
But she said that her mom never spoke the language and that they only started recovering our original language in her lifetime.
Mm.
And her mom was the one that survived the boarding school and ran away and met her dad. So, yeah, it's really sad, but I feel like this generation that's coming forward, like, if you've had the opportunity to be connected with your culture in a way, that's a privilege and a blessing. If you have the opportunity to live in your homelands, like, that's a dream of mine, to go back and to just have a farm in my homelands. Like, that's the
Yeah.
dream, right?
Hmm.
I think that's every culture's dream. And
Yeah, I'm trying to move back to Mexico.
see?
I'm trying to live in Mexico at some point once, once things are good financially, I can be there. I don't know how long, but a very long time.
Mhm.
My parents are from Jalisco, but I want to check out Oaxaca, Yucatan, and do some real healing out there. You know, that's the dream for me.
Totally.
So
Well, speaking of your family in Mexico, are there any ghost stories that you know of
yeah, I do,
Mexico?
I do, I do. Um, so this is one that all Mexicans know. It's called La Llorona. So La Llorona is essentially this woman who drowned two of her own kids in the river, and then she later regretted it and she went through a lot of great misfortune after that, and she regretted what she did, and then she took her own life, and essentially La Llorona translates to a wailing woman, or she's wailing, and it is said that she haunts the rivers of all of Mexico, and that and she'll be like mis hijos, and she basically will
Ugh, so creepy. Give me the chills. Ugh.
And so yeah, she's basically crying out for her children, like trying to, like, she's trying to find their spirits, but
She's lost.
she's lost. She's so lost, and uh it's been in it's been in the Mexican folklore for a very long time. I don't remember how long, but
I wonder like what the origins were, like, what did this lady actually exist and that actually happened, and people saw her, heard her, etc. Why would she haunt all the rivers of Mexico? There's a ton. Like, wouldn't it be like a specific area?
I mean, it wasn't a specific. I don't remember where exactly, but
But it kind of spread out.
like she's apparently supposed to be like a very powerful, like, spirit, that, like, that's why she can haunt, like, can like she can be heard, like, all throughout Mexico. Like, there's something about that. I don't really remember how, like, everything.
Well, what about the chupacabra?
Chupacabra. Okay, so chupacabra translates to uh goat sucker. So the goat sucker. So that basically it is said that the US or some government, secret shadow government, was experimenting with, like, crossbreeding certain animals and stuff, and one escaped. One weird. I don't know if it looks like a dog. It has, like, a lot of different looks. I don't remember exactly how it's supposed to look, but it's supposed to be like tall, lanky, like,
Like, it's almost like a possessed coyote on two legs
exactly something
with
like that
fangs.
with fangs. And there's been reports, a lot of, not just in Mexico but other parts of Latin America, um where there's uh animals that have been drained out of their blood. Like they check and there's like no blood. And
Like,
um
how does that happen?
well, it's a real life vampire.
Ugh. It's a
And
coyote bloodsucker.
and so and there's like two puncture wounds. Like they found it in goats, chicken, even cows.
Damn.
And there's two puncture wounds, and they're just drained of blood.
What do you think it really is? Do you think there really is a chupacabra?
I think there's something out there that's doing that.
Is it aliens?
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but I can kind of buy into the idea that it was a government experiment gone wrong.
Damn. Yeah, my grandma would tell me stories about Bigfoot, and she had a whole map in her dining room with like pins on it of where she'd seen Bigfoot.
Ooh,
Where
I've
she'd
heard Bigfoot. Me and my
Oh,
dad.
it's big up in the Pacific Northwest. It's big, and Canada, like Bigfoot's. So I think Bigfoot's a species that is in hiding, and they live in the earth, and they're giant. They're like
10 feet tall.
Totally, and hairy, and there's a bunch of stuff out there. A bunch of people have faked it, made the footprints. It's been made into a hoax, this and that. But there's a lot of native stories about Bigfoot being.
Do you know any of them?
I don't know like old ones. I just know ones that my grandma told me of like what happened to her. So
well, you can tell us those.
So she would go. She had this camp she would go to in the summertime, and she would like pretty much live there in the mountains all summer. And so she was out at camp, and first of all, one really cute side story is when she was little, she would go to this camp, and they would like live out there in the summertime, right? And she found these like baby chipmunks, and she would like befriend them. They were like abandoned babies, and she like kept them in her pocket, and it was like her little forest friend for the summer, like 8 years old, like little baby chipmunk. Like she had two of them. They would like hang out on her shoulders.
That's so cute.
I know. I was like, oh my God, that's like my dream. But so she kept going out there, right? And they would always give like offerings to Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And she had this basket that she was trying to keep up away from bears with food in it. And she was like, she had it up like 20, maybe not 20, maybe like 10, 15 feet up in the air. So that bear couldn't get it, right? Her like food cooler or whatever.
Yeah.
And
oh shit, this is gonna get good.
And she heard something getting into it, and it was totally taken down. The like thing was taken down. She's like, there's no way a bear could have gotten that trap or gotten that basket of food out of the thing. And she would hear Bigfoot howling almost like a sad, lonely groan, wailing, like, ooh. She felt bad for him. He was lonely. She could hear it in his voice that he was lonely and crying in a wailing way, and so she started leaving food out for him, and I don't know that she befriended him, but she had I know she didn't tell me everything. I know there's more to the story that I didn't get, but she had a soft spot for Bigfoot. And my mom jokes that Bigfoot's her real dad. But yeah, a lot, like, God, that she had probably 100 different pins on her map of where she'd seen Bigfoot.
Wow.
Yeah. She was a believer.
I'm a believer. Me and my dad at 3 a.m. have heard like this was like in I think either this is like sequoias. The sequoias. I woke up to a howling like it was like a very distinct. I can't remember the exact howl. It was like
almost like a yodel.
It was something we couldn't like it wasn't a coyote, wasn't a mountain lion, bear, what it wasn't any of those creatures or wolf. It was very distinct. And I remember my dad that next whole day kept replicating that sound. He was like, we heard Bigfoot that night.
Bigfoot, I think, is real. So I've also heard of the little people, which are like,
Like the fairies or like
no, they're
leprechauns.
kind of like leprechauns. They're like elves. They're called the little people.
And you know,
They play tricks on you, and they will fuck you up.
in Mexican culture we call those oh shit, what was the word? Okay. It was duendes.
What does that translate to?
Duendes are little people.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So the little people live underground, is the story that I've heard. And they live in the forest. And it's, there's definitely a lot of stories about like for children to not go wandering off in the forest by themselves, that they'll get eaten by the little people.
mhm.
So don't go out there. And at Mount Shasta, there's also this story of Agartha, which is actually a city that's underneath of Shasta in the inner earth. And this is the ancient city that the little people and the ancestors used to have more of a synergy between them. And
Mhm.
that there's like, I don't want to say non-human, but maybe subhuman life forms that live down there, and that it's a base for extraterrestrials to go in and out of.
Yeah, I've heard that too, and I heard there's a certain type of reptilian that lives down there too.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
So from my research, there's two types of there's a reptilians that came from another dimension to this reality, and there's the reptilians that are naturally from this earth, which are the descendants from the velociraptors and all those, and from the dinosaurs,
Damn.
and those ones live underground.
Damn. Plot twist. Dinosaurs survived and they evolved, bitch.
They evolved, yeah, they evolved into freaking humanoids, reptilian humanoids, and
Whoa.
they live underground.
I don't know. I mean, is that, I don't know that I really believe that that could happen. How would they become humanoid without breeding with apes?
Well, well,
Genetically.
I think they're not like entirely like I think they're not like they're not like they're not like I don't know if they I don't know the exact like if they
They're
walk
like
upright.
sentient?
They're sentient, yeah, they're
Okay.
sentient, and they have their own language, and
But they're not like a cross hybrid with
no, they're not
humans.
hybrids. They're not
Okay.
hybrids. They're not
Okay.
hybrids.
So maybe not humanoid, maybe sentient is a better.
They're sentient, but they do walk upright.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Damn. I haven't seen like actual aliens, but I've definitely seen some demonic entities and some shadow people. And also like I want to say they were like almost like mechanical in nature.
Mhm.
And it was actually at a strip club in Vegas. I saw these entities. They were very dark. They almost reminded me of like something from out of Star Wars that
Yeah.
had like a hinge, and it was like almost insectoid meets uh, mechanical, and it was harvesting the sexual energy out of both the recipient and the stripper at the lap dances and on stage. And it was
Mhm.
like they were like a fixed piece there. I was tripping balls. It was not a good trip. But that
That's
was,
sketchy.
yeah, that was when I was like, I need to get out of here. Like Vegas is not my friend. I do not like Vegas at all. But I definitely have seen some really shady, shadowy, demonic type stuff
Yeah.
What kind of demons and shadow people have you seen?
Well, I actually have a story. Um, so before I go into my personal stories, I just thought of one right now so my mom's friend. So my mom used to take care of. She used to have a daycare, take care of kids, and so she had a lot of. She was friends with a lot of the moms and stuff. Um, so I remember one mom. She was telling us a story of how she was in Upper Ojai in the mountains or something, and cleaning a house because that's what she would do. She cleans houses, and there was this creature that was invisible that was had her was had its arms around her and trying to squeeze her to death, and had her tail had the creature had its tail around her, and but it was like invisible, and she thought it was like this demonic reptilian creature that was around her, and it was talking to her telepathically. It's saying like, "Oh, you're coming with me, like you submit, like and stuff like that." She's like, "No, this is a strong woman. This is a strong, feisty Mexican woman." And she's like, "Ah, hell no!" And so she fucking like got the tail and bit the tail. Not on my watch, and then the creature ran, like it just ran, and she's like, "Fuck you."
Damn. That's badass. Woo. Didn't you bite a demon once?
Yes, but it was etheric, so I don't think I got it. Yeah, I had this one time when I was still living with my roommate. I saw this creature on the corner of my room, and I was like, it was lengthy and kind of grayish white, and it had like white eyes and like just like disgusting mouth, like black gray mouth, and I was like, it jumped at me, and it was like, and I was like, it jumped on me, and I tried to like, it wasn't physical, it was etheric. So I couldn't like bite. I was trying to bite it. I ended up biting my pillow instead, but I was trying to bite it like, you know.
And then it eventually left.
Well, I was just, you know what, I'm just gonna go to sleep. I've had enough today.
Yeah. Yeah. So I used to do this magic work with my ex-husband where he was really into the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And
Mhm.
we would do these banishing rituals of the pentagram, which pretty much worked with the archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and what's the third one I'm missing? Raphael.
Raphael, yes.
And essentially, it was going around and doing these 4 directions, putting the pentagram out, doing some breath work. It was all good and love and light, right? And then he started getting into the demonic evocations, and that he had the like angels, I guess, like holding the space, and then he would call in the certain demon to like come in. And essentially, these demons are not if you assert your power over them, like they're lower vibrational entities and they will do what you say.
Okay.
And him and his friends were super into it, and I was just kind of along for the ride, and
Yeah.
I wasn't doing the evocations with them, but usually what would happen is I would like pass out, like I would like fall asleep. And then sometimes like I think they evoked Hecate once and it like spoke through me while I was sleeping. And
Whoa.
when they told me that after I woke up, like Hecate is a dark goddess, like I wouldn't call her like demonic, but it freaked me out,
Yeah.
and I don't really like messing with that stuff anymore. But it was interesting to be a part of this Western magic thing because I'm way more into the spiritual side of like Native American spirituality and sweat lodge and all that stuff. So it was just an interesting perspective, and they did a good job. Like they held a clear space for the most part,
Yeah.
but I'm not really trying to be involved with.
Demonic forces or dark shit.
I'll stick to the banishing ritual and that's it. I didn't want
Yeah.
to go any further than that. But the shadow people, there's a lot of different types of shadow people. And do you have any advice for people that are seeing shadow people or seeing demons or
Don't be afraid. I know that's kind of people might be like, but I'm afraid. Like they're scary. No, like remember that you're incarnated on Earth because you are a warrior. You know, you're a warrior being. You know, people who come here is this reality is not for the faint of heart. So just remember to go back and think about um your divinity. Think about how divinely powerful you are to be here, and take a deep breath and breathe out gold, pink, and white light. Remember, pink is divine love. Gold is like the royalty of creation, and the white is purity. So for me, I like to use gold and pink, and those are my colors. Um, and I breathe those out. So
yeah, I
even
intuitively do the same thing,
yeah,
but I use white and gold.
yeah,
Violet is also really powerful. The
yeah,
violet flame can transmute,
yeah.
and that is really powerful if for people to transmute and burn away that which is not theirs. Also, you can use sage, right? I think sage is really overused, honestly.
Well, sometimes it doesn't work. And I actually I was talking to this girl on my TikTok. She's like, "Hey, well, there's some shady stuff going on in my house. Like, there's stuff moving, breaking. There's a poltergeist, and it's demonic, and all this stuff." So I gave her advice to basically to be a warrior. I'm like, "Hey, like, just breathe in all that light and breathe it out. Breathe it in from creator and breathe it out." And I also, because I know how powerful organite is, I told her to make organite and grid it all around her house.
So what does organite do?
Organite is a composite material. It's here's one right here. It's it's basically metal powders, epoxy or resin, and crystals. And what that does, and it's acute so here's it's based on Dr. Wilhelm Reich's work. So organite accumulate. I might have to do another whole other episode on organite because
Just
I
the Cliff Notes version.
the cliff notes is it's an accumulator of chi and transmuter of chi. So it will turn negative energy, dark energy into positive energy. And it's constantly doing that because of the materials that it has. And I'll probably do an episode just on this. But that's what this is.
Yeah, I've made organite and I've used it, especially around like internet routers and stuff like that to help with the energy. And
Yeah, it definitely has a more every time I've used it, there's because my house on Holt Street where I used to live by the Pepsi plant. I mean, so I used to live in another part of this town, and that house had entities.
how many?
At least one. I can't remember. There's one main one and then two other ones. I could feel them in the house, but when I put the organite all around the property, they seemed to go. But
Interesting.
but then the positive beings came in. So they
That's
left.
good.
They left. Positive beings came in.
Yeah. The banishing ritual of the pentagram too, that has definitely helped when I have felt like I'm in a place where there are dark energies.
Hmm.
And I've I, I have not seen these, but my little brother, I have a half brother, his great grandma, old Jamaican woman, right? Like blind in one eye, like 4'10", like she was Jamaican to the bone, man. And she swore up and down she saw these 3 ghosts in their house. And so as they were Jamaican, what they did is they covered the mirrors with black trash bags because the mirrors were like portals or ways that they could get in. And they called in a priest and they did like an exorcism that way.
Mm.
And I don't know that it worked. It was just in some random apartment. They said it was like 3 men.
Yeah.
And she was very detailed. And I would love to hear in the comments if anybody has any ghost stories that they would like to share, and maybe
That'd be great.
we'll list
Comment
them
below.
in our next episode. We'll feature them if they're good.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Do you feel complete?
How much time do we have? I feel pretty complete. I feel like we have covered a lot in this.
Mm-hmm. I definitely want to say, as a Indigenous mixed blood person, that if you're out there and like for a fact that you've got Native blood, and it doesn't really matter like how much, like the whole blood quantum idea is really a concept of genocide. But if you feel like you want to reconnect with your people and you don't know where to start, I really recommend just looking for a sweat lodge. If you can try and find a sweat lodge and just bringing tobacco and being really, really humble to like learn. And
I don't know. I feel like blood quantum at some point does matter, just because like we have literally fair skin, very fair skin, blue eye, blonde hair looking people saying like, oh yeah, I'm Cherokee. Like I'm like, yo, like.
so I have mixed feels on this because that's my daughter.
Yeah.
My daughter has blue eyes, fair skin, curly ass hair.
Yeah.
She does not look Indian. And my son, they have different dads, but my son is like, his dad is Apache, so he has it on both sides. So he looks Native.
Yeah.
And he is more Native than her, like he's got like 5 tribes in him. And a lot of people will have more than one tribe in them. And there is a point where like part of it is like how much of that is our indoctrinated like racistness of being like, yo, you look white, and that prejudice against the colonizers, that how much of that is our own trauma response from genocide. Right? Being like, well, you can't claim this. Well, I've seen very fair-skinned people that definitely have Indigenous features, but I've also seen people that skirt around. They say they're Indigenous and they don't actually have a tribe to connect with at all. They just say their great grandma's an Indian princess. Like, bitch, sit down.
And even if they did, like, they could still, be very disrespectful.
Totally. And what it comes down to is respect. Yeah. And there's a lot of Indigenous women that have gone missing, and there's, especially in the Great Lakes area in the Midwest, thousands and thousands called missing murdered Indigenous women, MMIW.
Actually, that's something you want to get into, because
I don't have a lot to say on it, just other than bringing awareness to that it is across the US and Canada, and these Native girls are being stolen, usually raped, and then killed and left in ditches or on the side of the road. And a lot of times it is done by white men, and the white men aren't necessarily held to justice.
I hear a lot of the oil. It's oil workers too. It's oil workers, right? Generally, oil workers, right?
I think that it's in these Indigenous communities where this says that in 2016 there were 5,700 reports of American Indian and Alaska Native girls that were missing. And then in the like missing persons log of like, you get that like alert of like there's like a missing child or a missing person, only 116 were actually reported to that national database. So unfortunately, they haven't gotten the attention, and a lot of them are sold into human trafficking, and they're never to be seen of again. And the issue is that these indigenous communities don't have the resources and aren't given the respect by the government to look for these girls. If these were white girls, it'd be all over the news.
Yeah, there's this. I remember this post I sent you about it's a meme and it's some artwork and it's like it shows this white girl says she is missing and there's like cameras and like all
Right.
this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then like behind her there's this native woman, she is missing and there's like no attention. There's no,
Totally.
you know.
Totally. So it's really sad, and unfortunately, all we can do is raise awareness. So if you are interested in learning more, you can definitely contribute to certain organizations. Native Hope is one of them, where you can donate, and then that contributes to finding these missing women and bringing them home. And that's another thing that I want to mention is the ICWA is the Indian. Oh geez, I'm forgetting the acronym right now, but it's the ICWA is a law for Indian children, Indian Children Welfare Act, and this was recently brought to the Supreme Court this year, where my mom was a recipient of ICWA because what ended up happening is she got removed from her mom because her mom went to jail and her dad was not available. He was injured.
Wow.
And they sent her with her white grandparents, her dad's parents. So ICWA is keeping Indian children in Indian communities. So this arose after my mom got relocated with her family. So essentially, if an Indian child is removed from their parents, which the CPS goes all over Indian reservations, deeming them unfit, and removes children from their homes. This was the origins of also like boarding schools, but after the boarding schools got closed down, they would relocate children to white families, Christian families, that are more suitable. So ICWA was put in place to keep Indian children in their own culture. So, for example, if a child say their parents are incarcerated and it's an Indian child and they don't have any family that can take them in, according to ICWA, if the child has enough blood quantum and is a member of a federally recognized tribe, that child will then be relocated into foster parents that are within the tribe or within a similar tribe closer to their culture rather than to a white family.
Yeah.
Or a non-native family. And these people, they're super right-wingers, which I don't have anything against right-wingers, but these people in particular were saying that it was racist to have Indian children only go to Indian homes, and that it was racist against other cultures. And
so dumb.
I think that it was overturned and the ICWA still exists, but it went to the Supreme Court and they almost overturned it, but they didn't.
Wow.
So, and it's a whole other thing of like if the child even qualifies to be a tribal member. So like my kids can't be tribal members because I'm at the bottom of the quantum. Yeah. And so like I'm only an 8th on paper. Like I'm really mostly white.
Well, you haven't taken any sort of test.
I haven't taken a DNA test, so I don't really know. But according to the genetic family tree, I'm only an 8th. According to my tribe. And that's the lowest rank in order to have tribal membership.
Yeah.
So my children cannot be tribal members until that's changed in tribal council. And a
Yes.
lot of tribes will have the option of what's it called? It's genetic. I'm missing the word, but some tribes you can have it throughout your whole bloodline,
Mhm.
and other tribes it stops at a certain quantum.
I see.
Each tribe is different. Like the Cherokee, it don't matter. If you can prove that you have an ancestor that's on the Dawes roll call, you get tribal membership. But you got to prove it. You got to go down to Oklahoma and you got to prove it. You got to
Mhm.
have the paperwork together.
I see.
But then it's for your whole bloodline. Your children, your children's children, your children's children's children. They're good. They're tribal members.
Mhm.
And that gets a little weird. That's when you get a bunch of blonde natives.
Yeah, and that's kind of the issue that I was bringing up.
So as indigenous people on this continent, I just want to circle back and give gratitude and thanks to those that have kept our cultures alive,
Mhm.
and especially like the Lakota, the Navajo, the Dene,
Mhm.
the Cherokee. There's large tribes that have remained more intact than others.
Yeah. And actually, in Mexico, there's a lot of people who don't speak Spanish.
Really?
There's a lot of people who only speak their native language.
Oh, wow. That's
Uh,
really cool.
and it's because of the type of colonization that the Spanish did. And that's actually why the US didn't want to get all of Mexico. That they wanted all of Mexico, but it's because there's too many natives that they couldn't
Assimilate.
assimilate.
Mm,
That's the main reason.
yeah. Well, I'm glad that we have our ceremonies that are legal now, and that there's a resurgence in this generation of finding ourselves, of learning how to pray, of learning how to be, of learning what does it mean to be a caretaker of this earth. And if you're not native and you're listening to this and you really look up to native culture, I really recommend to do some of your own digging in your own ancestry, and
Remember to be respectful, please.
please be respectful. Don't be trying to go dance powwow or wearing any feathers in your hair. Like, those are earned. Eagle feathers are earned, not bought. I mean, you can buy fans, but
There's the whole headdress thing.
and legally, you're not allowed to carry eagle feathers or bird of prey feathers, owl, hawk, eagle. You're not allowed to carry those feathers legally at all unless you're a tribal member of a recognized tribe.
I see. I did not know that.
Yeah, if you're caught with it, it's a federal offense.
Wow.
So have your tribal ID card, relatives. It's a good day to be indigenous.
That's a good day to be indigenous.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in today. This was a really fun episode.
This was a good one.
Let's close it out with let's burn some cedar and
Yeah.
give some blessings to y'all. If you've made it this far in our podcast, thank you. Thank you, Wopula. I want to give a big thanks to especially the Lakota people. And I was over at Pine Ridge and I attended Sundance out there, and I just love their culture so much, and
Damn.
they've
That's
been so
awesome.
inviting and loving, and just want to give blessings out to Pine Ridge right now, and blessings to Standing Rock, and burning this cedar, and blessing all of you listeners up, and giving lots of blessings your way. Cedar is said to bring those blessings to your life sevenfold for each generation, forward and backwards. And if you are in a place where you can find some cedar, I recommend to take a couple branches, dry them out, and you can use them as incense. You can make little bundles like this, or just burn them over some fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the smell is just
It's good.
so good. It's my favorite.
That's been the Raw Path to Awakening podcast.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.